Hello and welcome to another episode of Thru The DAW podcast. This episode is brought to you by Wargie Productions. Wargie Productions make and produce some of the UK's top charting podcasts. Perhaps you're an individual that has an idea for a podcast. You could be a business that wants to launch a podcast. Maybe you're an artist or a comedian. It doesn't really matter. If you have an idea for a podcast and you want to have some help in developing that and making it into a real thing, head over to www.wargieproductions.com. Take a look at the list of the people that they've been working with. Get in contact. They're super nice, friendly guys, and they're there to help. They also make and produce this podcast, so there you go. In this episode, we got to sit down with none other than label boss, film actor, TV actor, and spoken word artist, Mr. Scroobius Pip. And I have to say, it was an absolute pleasure. The guy is just a legend. He's full of stories. He's come right the way through the music industry and into, obviously, now movies and TV, but he's come at this all the time with a DIY approach. He has basically taken the bare minimal of whatever he's got around him and turned it into something incredible. So we were really, really excited to get him on and get him telling some stories about how he's managed to do that. We decided to go against all the podcasting rulebook guidelines and record it in Warren's back garden in Leigh-on-Sea. It was a very nice sunny day. Warren has a particularly rainforesty type looking garden, so we thought we'll set up shop in there. And we did. And what we didn't realise at the time was actually that his next door neighbour, their back garden basically is a building site, and there's lots of builders and stuff making loads of noise. And also we were sat in the flight path to all the flights coming into Southend-on-Sea. So you will hear some stuff in the background, but I urge you to just get over it because it's fine, it doesn't matter. There may also be a little bit of blue language in this one. So if you are in the car with your kids or you're around anybody that may become offended, then perhaps either stick some headphones on or wait till you're alone. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels on your favourite podcasting platform. Also head over to our socials, which is any social at Thru The DAW, and give us some comments. Let us know what you think. Give us some ideas. So here it is, Mr. Scroobius Pip. Right, start again. Mr. Scroobius Pip, thank you so much for taking some time out to come and join us on this podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's awesome to have you on this, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule.
No problem at all. Yeah, man.
We wanted to get you on this really because this podcast is geared around, I guess, giving some nuggets of information, but also inspiration and just some sort of light a fire under people's arses who are in that position where they're either they have an idea to start creating, or they've started creating and they don't know what to do with it next, or and I guess just some kind of words of inspiration and belief in that, you know, you can take that creation and do the next thing. And so the series is going to be idea to career, basically, and that we're going to gear that around that. But we wanted to very much get you on because of your DIY approach to pretty much everything that you've done.
Yeah.
Starting right out from the beginning, videos, how you stay in budget, and I want to talk a bit around, I think you mentioned that you did one for like £100 or something, and it was just awesome.
I completely think that the restrictions can trigger creativity or false creativity. I think it's one of the problems with a lot of bigger acts and bigger artists is that you've got endless budget, therefore you can do endless things, whereas if you've got those restrictions, you have to think, right, what can we make work and what's going to be amazing, rather than let's just do everything, let's throw everything at it, let's get dancers, let's get all this. If you're like, right, I can't have any of that, therefore I need to find a way to stand out, which I don't think a lot of big budget things do. They're not necessarily thinking about how to stand out, they're thinking about how to look big and look expensive.
I think it gives you an ability to be able to really utilise your creativity in order to use everything around you, which might not be a lot, but kind of going back to
I mean, you've diversified and you've gone into film, acting, podcasting, all kinds of things. But going back to you, the sort of boy in the bedroom.
Yes.
Where did it all start for you?
Well, the first porno I got was again, it literally starts with DIY, because the reason I started doing spoken word was because I didn't know any producers and I didn't know how to produce. So it wasn't a love of poetry that grew,
Right.
but I had a love of rap and punk, and I was bored of being in bands because you always have to rely on other people, and there's always one person, no matter how positive it starts, there's always one person that a few of you start to think is the weak link or isn't as dedicated.
Always
or
an
doesn't
hour late.
There's always that. So I started doing spoken word because I'd heard people like Gil Scott-Heron and Saul Williams and Sage Francis and that, and I figured, right, I can do that off my own back. I can just go to open mics in London or Southend or wherever and just do it off my own back. And then when I started to produce the demos, which came kind of at exactly the same time, again, rather than going, well, how do you produce or what programs do you need or what computers do you need, I looked at what I had, and I had these CD decks, which I can't even remember the brand of them. They were all for these little silver things, but they had a loop mode on them. So I'd get a load of, let's say I'd pay for them, but I was working in HMV at the time, so they had their own brand. Yeah, they had their own line of classical jazz and things like that, and they were all dirt cheap, and they just had endless catalogues of music. So I'd listened to a load of them and find something I wanted to loop, and literally I had a little recording desk. Again, I was worried about this podcast because I'm terrible about makes or brands of anything. I had a desk, I had a CD thing.
Yeah, it worked. That's fine. Yeah.
And I'd loop stuff, and then I'd find a drum beat that was I could get to the right tempo, and I'd loop that and record that in.
So you could do that on like channels though.
Yeah, it was on channels.
You're right. That's pretty good.
Yes. So I'd do that. Again, at that point, I didn't even have my loop pedal, which I went on to use for beatboxing and stuff like that. All I had was some CDJs, so it was finding stuff that I could kind of force together and then chat over the top of it. So again, so DIY, so amateur, but it worked.
So how's that working? So what, is one like a CD recorder or something, and you're looping in?
So no, literally, I've got essentially a CD deck, and I've plugged that into the input of essentially a mixing desk.
Right.
It's a little mini mixing desk that could probably do loads of amazing things that I never learned how to do.
Porter studio.
Yeah, it was a little Porter studio.
Was it a little Porter studio?
Yeah, it was a silver thing. I've still got it in my loft because it's still got all those old files on it. It had a hard drive in it. I've never known how to take that hard drive out or do anything else. So, I'd press either a record on the thing, and then I'd start the loops. As there was no software interface, I wasn't doing anything on computer, so I'd start the loop, and then I'd loop that for ages. It's why half my early tracks have got like a minute of instrumental at the end, because it's like I needed to make enough, because if I want to make it again, I have to start at the beginning again, if you know what I mean, because I can't, I've not got files in front of me, so I'd loop a load, I'd bring the drums in at a certain point, I'd take them out at a certain point, and then I'd write to that down the line. It used to it was the bane of Dan Lasac's existence, because he'd send me an idea beat and I'd write to it and finish a whole track, and he'd be like, that was literally an idea, that wasn't meant to be the layout, we're meant to have more discussion on this, but because I was used to, I'd build it all on a vibe, and then I'd write to that. I'd be like, all right, the verse ends there because that's where that drum loop ends. That wasn't planned or structured. I was like, well, that's how long the verse is. So, chorus will go there.
Did that's all those demos, and that's what became No Commercial Breaks, effectively, or what working towards?
It's what worked towards it. See, I was scared of getting done for sampling. Because it was that era where that was just starting to come about. So I booked, I think it was 3 days I could afford in a studio. I think it was in Brentwood or maybe Braintree kind of way. No, it was up this way actually. It was somewhere more towards Southend. I booked 3 days in this studio, and I'd made all these demos, and I got my mate Alan, Shortis, who I used to do a lot of street art with, and he was an amazing drummer, trained as a jazz drummer, and just was in like metal bands and all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah.
And I got Ross Lawson, who I'd been in covers bands with and worked in HMV with, and he played guitar, bass, sax, piano. He played everything. So I basically got those two in a studio, and we had 3 days to recreate.
Yeah.
So that I wasn't using samples, to recreate all these tracks that I'd built roughly on my.
So they were kind of
mad setup,
trying to sort of replicate the type of style without
and change it just enough.
Yeah.
Change again. My ignorance was like just change a note here and there. It's like you'd still get done if anyone looked at it. You'd still go, "That's Summer in the City."
Yeah.
Like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
because there's one key not there, or it was played on in this studio. But yeah, that's kind of how we worked it. And again, I liked it because I'd always heard like Boogie Down Productions, Sakaris, One and Scott La Rock. They had a lot of tracks. They had these long intros and stuff, and that's because all they could afford was an hour in the studio. So Scott La Rock had made the beat, and then they had an hour in there.
Yeah.
And I kind of liked that. Again, it's that restriction, I guess. It's having that restriction if you've not got months to play with it. I mean, afterwards, the guy who owned the studio, he mixed and mastered it, so there was a bit of back and forth on that, but the stuff was there, and there wasn't a lot that could be done. The one track that I wasn't happy with, I wasn't happy with it because it sounded too clean, so I completely re-recorded that track in the toilet at my mum's house and in my bedroom at my mum's house.
What track was it?
It was At All.
At All, right.
Yeah, because that was all beatbox into a loop pedal.
So I'd like, we want to.
Should probably point out, by the way, we've decided to pitch up next to a building site, so if you can.
There's a hammering going on.
It's atmospheric.
As part of this podcast, we like to, so far anyway, to dissect a track halfway through.
Yeah.
And I was gonna. It's usually, obviously of your choosing, but as At All was one of them, I think we could do that.
Let's go for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll do that in a bit. We'll come to that.
We'll come to that.
So you've got your tape decks. You've made your CD players. You've made your I guess spoken word sort of rap bit over the top a bit. How did you get that creation that you've made? Then what did you do in order to be able to get that to the next level, so that you were able to break through and start to get an audience and people watching you and becoming interested in what you're doing?
The key, I think, was complete blind ignorance. Because it was only, I was chatting about this a year or two ago. So this is 10, 12, 13, 14 years on from them days. Yep. I only realised a year or two ago. So when I was recording the record, I was working in HMV and saving up. I always... like on one of my lyrics on a later album, I had a line that my Kickstarter campaign was 5 years in retail, because it was. My Kickstarter was, I worked for 5 years to be able to afford to put this out. I didn't go out, I didn't socialise, I didn't like working in Lakeside, I didn't have my lunches in the food court. I bought bread and chicken and stuff like that, and made
purely with the foresight of thinking, I'm going to save this money to make this creation.
I wanted to release the record. I didn't know how much that would cost. I wanted to try. The basic idea was I wanted to save enough money to be able to take a year trying at being a musician, and if I failed, cool. I enjoyed retail. I was really good at it. I'll go back to that. All good. But I saved up and all that, and it wasn't until I was discussing this on another podcast that when I quit my job and I spent a month touring the country, living in my Toyota Space Cruiser, and just playing on street corners and things like that. I'd recorded my album at that point, so I'd done that at weekends. Yep. And it only occurred to me recently that at the point I quit and went on the road, I'd never played in front of anyone before. I'd done the stuff in the studio. Yeah. I'd never done an open mic, a street performance, any kind of performance. Right. But it just hadn't crossed my mind. I was like, right, this is what I'm doing. And in a way, I think... It forces you to succeed. Like I had no option other than to succeed. I'm not from a wealthy family. Yeah. I was living at my mum's house. I was like, this has to work now. I've quit my career. Yeah. And it sounds weird to refer to retail as a career, but I'd got up to management. Yeah, I was in that place where I was looking at it being my career. So, yeah, I'd quit, and then I kind of had to succeed. So I went out on the road and just played on street corners.
When you say street corners, are you literally? I mean, what? Like, are you playing to shoppers?
The first one I did, weirdly, I was doing after Thou Shalt came out. A few years later, I was doing a thing for Six Music, and their news guy Matt Everett, who was the news guy at the time, he showed me a photo of me doing a street performance, and it was mad because it turns out that was my first ever performance. He happened to be there. Me and my mate Chris were going on the road, and the plan was to just turn up in city centres. I had a ghetto blaster that had my instrumentals on. I had a loop pedal, and I had a little portable amp. So I'd either beatbox and loop it and rap over the top, or I'd play the instrumentals and rap over the top. And just before we were going to leave London, we saw that DJ Shadow was handing in. He was doing an album playback at Island Records, I think it was, and fans were invited, and it was the first come, first served, and you'd get to come in the lobby and hear the new record.
This is a big queue.
So it was a big queue. There was a horde of people. So I turned up and did that, and again it was mad because I was about to do it, and I was like, I don't know if it's going to work. And if I hadn't had my mate Chris there, who was like, "You've got to do it."
Yeah.
With like we were on the road now for a month.
Yeah, exactly. What else
just
you gonna
go and do it. I think if I'd been on my own, I might have ended up just not doing it and bottling it or whatever. But because I had a mate there to hold me to task, I did it, and it was all right. It wasn't great. I was nervous. I hadn't thought about any of it. Again, it was that thing of here's all the things I'm going to do, and then later going, oh shit, I've actually got to do them now. I've had that my whole career with the radio show on XFM. It wasn't until all the articles came out how bold it was that they were giving a guy with a stutter a radio show that I was like, oh yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Hadn't crossed my mind at all. But so that was it. I did that, and then we went on the road and we hit city centres originally, and quickly I learnt that city centres have got a lot of people, but not a lot of people who necessarily want to hear a weird fusion of hip hop, spoken word. There
Depends
was some
what time
jazz
of day
stuff
it is
on there.
as well, right? I mean, if it's pitching up at midnight, you're going to get a big different reception.
I remember the first one that made me stop doing street corners was we did a city centre in Manchester, and it was the day of an England game at Old Trafford, and it felt as if we were going to get killed and have our gear nicked. So we quickly went, right, well, what else can we do? From then on, every town we went to, we looked at the gig listing and rocked up outside other people's gigs. Because again, the thought is if we're in Manchester, and Mr. Scruff's in Manchester, I remember that one. No, well, that was in Cambridge. It doesn't matter where specifically, I guess. But say we're in Manchester and Mr. Scruff's in Manchester. Mr. Scruff's going to have a similar target audience as me. He's literally going to get all of that target audience and line them up against a wall. So I'd turn up there and perform, and that was
have you ever spoken to anyone else that's had that? That's done that? Because I've never. I see people handing out CDs in that kind of way, but I've never seen anyone pitch up and just play.
But the mad part is, I mean, number one, I was adamant I wouldn't busk, so I never had anything on sale. I had flyers, so they could find my MySpace. Flyers that had fake quotes on them. I had a quote on there from what's his name? Who's the dickhead Radio 1 guy, old man who what's his name?
The rapper guy, you mean?
Westwood. I had a quote on there from Westwood that said, "This is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life," which again completely made up. I had a quote from BigAppleFlow.com, made that website up, that said, "Yeah, great. It's wonderful." So I'd hand out flyers, but I was adamant not to ask for anything because I think we've got an instant mentality of if someone's asking for something, we will look away. If fucking Mick Jagger was on a street corner with a cup saying, "Can I have some money?" you'd put your head down and walk past him rather than go, "Oh wow, it's Mick Jagger." So I had that, and then I said the weird part is, number one, numerous bands whose gigs I went outside and played I've now gigged with or no, but even bigger, outside of one of them was a kid called Orpheus who gave me his beat tape, and a kid called Buddy Peace. Both of them I've worked with. Orpheus was on my solo record, Buddy now produces the
Yeah.
podcast, and I've worked with for years, and Warren's worked with, and
Of course.
so yeah, that's stuff that's people who were just in that queue, and it shows how correct it was that
Yeah.
really is my target audience, to the extent it would end up being people I would be friends with
Yeah.
for years to come
Yeah,
and
exactly.
work with artistically. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So
So,
it's mad.
so Buddy was there in the queue,
In
or
the
he
queue,
was there handing out CDs.
He was
or
at a Buck 65 gig. Him and Orpheus were going into the gig,
Yeah.
and as I was doing my thing on their way in, Orpheus said, "Here you go, I've got a beat CD,"
Yeah.
and me and Chris played that for most of the
Yeah.
time in the
Yeah.
van. It was
He's
it
dope
was
as well, isn't he,
was one of our
Orpheus?
soundtracks. It was so filmic and dark and weird, which
Yeah.
was
He's great.
perfect. Particularly when you're in a van with a mate, being someone who's into a lot of really wordy rap at times. That's not that good for two people,
No.
because it's stopping conversation, it's stopping interaction. So a fucking filmic cinematic beat album was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I remember meeting you around these parts actually in the Grand Hotel. I mean, I met you loads and loads before,
Yeah.
but from that point I had a shitload of your flyers and
Yeah.
a load of your CDs at one point
Oh, that was
on
it.
my bed because I was giving them out to
Didn't
people.
you say you
for
met? Was it around the corner from here? You said.
the Grand Hotel?
Yeah.
We played a show together. He DJ'd,
I
and I
DJ'd.
shouted gun, played a gig.
Yeah.
And from there we kind of started linking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't
And
it, really?
again,
'Cause
at
we
that
were only around the
point,
corner from each other, like living wise, I guess.
yeah,
but-
it's how I'd set up this whole tour around the
Yeah.
country. Was I'd had 1,000 or two flyers made up that said Scroobius Pip, the Relying on the Kindness of Strangers tour.
That's
If
it.
you've got a
That was
venue, an open mic or anything that you can hook me up and put me on, then let me know and I'll be there. So I sent them out to mates who were at uni in Norwich. I sent one out to a guy called Daniel Stevens, who I used to work with on HMV, who turns out was performing under the name of Dan Lassac. He booked me for my first ever indoors gig.
Right.
And when I got there, he'd remixed a few of my tracks, and that's what started our whole career.
Yeah.
I gave some to Warren. I gave them to all sorts of other people to just leave places and hand out. And again, you had the contact of MySpace. That's where you could find me. And I lived in a van,
Yeah.
so I could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's like, yeah, I'll come there.
Yeah. I guess
I remember
that's
doing a gig in Buxton, and it was literally in a cave, and it was for Buxton Fringe or something, and there was hardly anyone there, but it meant the world to be being asked to these places, and again, essentially to be asked places who could say, we can't really pay you, but I'll travel there because I'm living in a van at the time. So, and a key to it was I did the north before I did the south, because my thinking again was, if I'm doing the north, then my performance is tight. I always used to wear a suit and a trucker cap. I had a strong, unusual look. I had a CD that was made that had a barcode on it that did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, yeah,
A catalogue number that wasn't registered.
ISC. I can't remember what they call it.
All fake.
Yeah.
But I just thought if I do that up north, then they're going to assume I'm big down south.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm up here gigging and I've got CDs, and it worked.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
similarly, by the time I played in the south, I had a decent following, so you could go on my MySpace and see a few thousand people or whatever. So it was a true fake it until you make it, because it
Right.
was just, pretending, I'm already a success, and them going, all right, we'll pay you for this gig.
But it
or we'll
wasn't
do
so
that.
much pretending in that, like you were living it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sort of as we fast forward then, so you've gone from doing these little recordings at home with your CDJs. What's the next sort of big pinpoint of? So after going in the studio, no commercial breaks. What's your next sort of studio environment?
So,
sort of point?
I mean,
when's that then?
It's weird because it was
And what?
few and far between. On demoing, even after no commercial breaks, on demoing, I'd do it all in my bedroom at my mum's house. I'd put 3 mattresses together, towels over the top. There's a photo I post every now and then on socials, because
it's
I
great.
didn't even have a mic stand. It's a step ladder that had a mic, because mics come with a holder thing.
Yeah, the clip.
clip. So I had the clip, so I'd tape the clip onto a step ladder.
Man,
It's amazing.
And that's where I recorded everything. And the original Thou Shout vocal that got released on the single was recorded there. The version, I talked about this on a recent episode of my podcast with Fatboy Slim, and we played it at the end. Fatboy Slim got me to say Fatboy Slim, Just a Band, for him to DJ out. I didn't stutter on it, thankfully, otherwise that would have been awful. And I recorded that in my bedroom at my mum's house, and he headlined O2 Wireless that year, so he was playing that out to tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it was just recorded in my mum's bedroom. So all the demos were like that, and my studio experience after that was really similar in that we'd written all the tracks, we'd made them all with demos, and then we'd spend on a day or two in a studio. Yeah. And the first album, the first album was all at Yilla's studio. So in Tilbury, he had a studio in his back garden. As that's the first album with Dan. The second album with Dan, I recorded all the vocals in White Rooms.
Mark's
Watts' place. And my mate Ollie came down and recorded all of them.
Did you do anything in my house? I think we did backing vocals.
Yeah, we might have done some backing vocals.
I think I'm on a couple of them.
Yeah, maybe.
Or was it the third? No, I can't remember.
It might be I'm not sure.
The third album.
And then the third album, that was the first one that was in a proper studio in Reading that Dan was, he knew the people there. But again, still then it was like, I had a day or two at the most to do the whole record.
Yeah.
And then similarly, like I suppose
it was all
with
budget
Dan,
still.
But with Dan's, he was sort of in the same environment because he was at home. Yeah, everything was in the box, and then took to a studio for development, or not. I mean, if at all. A lot of it he would keep on the last album. He got some drummers in, he got some strings and things like that. But in general, we were adamant to stick to what it was. He was a band. Yeah. So it was like as soon as the first album did good, there was then and we're playing like a couple of thousand cap venues. There'd be pressure to add a live band, add this and add that. And we were always like, well, no, Dan made it all in his laptop. So we can add some, he's doing it all live. It's not like he's just pressing play. So we were more adamant to try and put focus on the fact that it was a live band, essentially, rather than go, we'll add a drummer and a bassist. There wasn't a drummer and a bassist on the record, so why add it for live? It felt weird to us. Yeah, and it's interesting because around that time I remember because we supported my band, I Shattered Gun, supported Dan and Sack on their first proper UK tour with the Anomalies.
Yep, that was right. Yeah, good lads,
good times. And I just remember thinking because it all worked so well. Like the sound was amazing that Dan produced out of Ableton. And it changed my perception of music to the point where after I Shattered Gun became defunct, I just started making music on my own.
That was key, and I have to sling a bit of ignorance in here, but Dan's relationship with our first proper sound man, James Appley, was absolutely key because they had a fractured relationship over the years. They loved and hated each other, but they were both absolute tech nerds. So all of Dan's stuff would be split up into stems, and we'd have all the bass on one channel. So James was mixing it like a live band. It just happened to be coming out of a laptop. So that was key as well. I think it's why we got a good reputation as a live act, and I think part of that was because people were surprised at what we got as a live sound out of a laptop, because you expect it to be, here's the backing tracks and all that. But Dan, so it was all Ableton live, and James would use main stage and stuff like that, I think. And it was it was great to have, that was key to making it not feel like we've got a rapper rapping over a backing track. It was key to us that it was the Dan Lessac versus Scroobius Pip, and we were equal in that. So we needed to make sure that it didn't feel like here's the guy who's pressing play. It was here's the music and here's the words.
Who was when you were saying that? I don't think you said pressure, but there was people were telling you to put a full band together. Was that a label telling you to do that? Or what? Did you go down the label route for that?
We signed with Sunday Best, and they were fantastic and supportive. But they would probably put forward the idea of a live band. Our booking agent would probably have put it forward again, completely supportive when we chose not to. The reason is quite right. The bigger the venue, the bigger the stage. And two people in the middle of a massive stage is going to look shit. So that was the idea was valid, but we instead went down the route of stage design and trying to have unusual stuff. The tour that we did, we had a living room on stage with us, and we literally got told the crowd to bring a living room ornaments to add to our living room. So we started with an empty cabinet, and by the end it had all these ornaments in, and we had a desk, a coat rack, a chair, all these, a grandfather clock, all from second-hand shops. And then on the next tour, we had these big boxes that we'd painted in different ways, and these were some circles. It was all related to the album artwork. And again, it was to try and go, right, let's try and fill the stage so that on first impression people aren't going, why aren't we watching this in a pub rather than in Coco, or the Shepherd's Bush Empire was one of our biggest shows. You need to fill those stages. Like, I remember, but again, it's surprisingly simple to do so. You'll both have had live bands that you've gone to see, and all they've had is light strips or something like that, and it's so striking and so amazing. I think it's often imposter syndrome that makes you go, oh, we need to have everything. If you're the biggest band in the world, and you go, let's just have 5 light strips, and it'll be white light, and it's going to look amazing. Whereas if you think you don't belong there, you'll be like, well, we need dancers, and we need a video screen, and we need this and that. When we got to headline 2,000 Trees.
2,000
Trees.
And we got to headline the main stage there, and that was mad. And for that, we had some lighting and stuff, but we spent a load of money on these huge balloons, and some of them were on strings and some of them weren't, and it just filled the stage up because you've got these huge balls that you can then smash out into the crowd on the big climactic song kind of thing.
Blow up sofa, or was that? Was that later on
that
down
was
the
just
line?
at a festival.
Oh, was it?
They happened to have that there. Yeah. That was at Independence. So it was making the most of what you had, and the small. Because again, I think the key to most of these things is that, like, I get all the time. I have people message me saying, "How can I get out there? Like, how can I get attention or whatever?" And my instant thought is always, start by not sending this message. Because if you're asking someone else, then you're not going to make it work. You need to just go out and do it. But the one caveat of that is, it was only on our last tour that we got a lighting guy. And we'd never toured with a lighting guy. We'd always used in-house. And it's amazing how much of a difference that makes to a show. But because we were figuring it all out ourselves as we stumble along, we're like, well, lighting seems like a luxury that we're not at a level to have yet. And then on that last tour we had that, because again, it's someone who knows all your songs, so they will drop it out completely at the right point, and it just it makes it a show rather than we had numerous gigs where the in-house lighting was amazing, but they're not going to know the songs. So if you've got a quick end or a longer or whatever, they're not going to have that same impact. It might look cool in the going mental bit because they've got a strobe, but other than that,
and so going from there, why and sort of, I guess, when did you make the move into heading up a label, starting your own thing? And why didn't you decide to kind of stick with the Sunday Best in order to release more stuff, or did you?
Well, that was an interesting thing. The starting my own label was for my solo stuff, because I'd put out the first record on my own label. Again, as we've established, it wasn't really a label. It was
a name.
It had a name, it had a logo, it had a catalogue number that, again, it wasn't registered anywhere. But on the solo record, I love Sunday Best. I thought they were great, but at that point, I wanted to do something that was a step away from what me and Dan were doing in between records. And I wanted it to be harder and punker and edgier. And I don't think Sunday Best at that label, or particularly at that point. They're kind of a feel-good, happy electronic, which is perfect for me and Dan. And again, I'm a massive observer, which sounds creepy, but I like paying attention to shit. So I'd learnt a lot. Again, like everyone says now, that the labels aren't needed because you can do it all yourself. I don't agree with that. The reason I could do the solo album or the record label myself, which again I've struggled with hugely, the reason I could do it as well as I did was because I'd watched a label who had experience, and I'd watched them make mistakes, and I'd watched them get things right. So yeah, it was about kind of having that independent feel and going, right, well, rather than spending a few £100 on mailing out the album to all these people, I'll get a travel card and I'll go to Radio 1 and I'll go to XFM and I'll give them to them myself. I'll
So
go.
this is now with the solo stuff.
Yeah, this is
this
the solo
pre-
stuff of me as a label.
Right.
Because again, the whole label, it's always kind of just been me.
Yeah.
I've worked with distribution.
Yeah.
I might have taken on PR for specific projects on a one album deal or whatever else, but actual full label, it's only ever been me. So yeah, it was all that DIY outlook and trying to, again, it's the faking it as well. It's giving the illusion that it's this big thing. It's why I did the whole it as Speech Development Records and made it a label, because it gives that air of professionalism, even if it's a very thin veil.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's cool. And then I think we were going to dissect a song at one point, weren't we? Do you want to do that somewhere around here? Or?
Yeah, well, what I was just going to suggest just quickly is just to go in just about your the tech side of how Distraction Pieces was made. Obviously, I was part of that.
Yep.
I'm aware of how that was put together.
Yeah.
But just, I think the development from me looking in was that obviously you went from doing those vocals in your bedroom.
Yep.
So moving on to them just using maybe like my house that you did a few demos on, and then Yilla's. But how that album come together. Yeah. With various producers, various songwriters, everything else. It's that collaborative effort. But I just sort of want to hear just a bit more detail about the techie side of it all, like how you approach recording it.
Well, it's mad because that whole album came about because of someone who ended up not being on the album. I hit up a few years before that. Liam Howlett had hit me up to write some lyrics for the Prodigy, and I wrote some stuff. I was too green at that point. I wrote some Scroobius Pip lyrics for the Prodigy, which was of no use whatsoever. But we kept in contact, and I hit him up asking if he wanted to do a remix of any of the singles on mine and Dan's second record. He said, I'm not really doing remixes, but if you're ever doing anything new, I'd love to be involved. And I think at that point, Distraction Pieces was just going to be me and you, and Yilla.
Yeah, that was
But that kind of spurred me to go, all right, well, if I can have a beat from Liam, like, who else can I have a beat from? Yeah. And weirdly, Danny Lonna from 9 Inch Nails had tweeted a load of lyrics from Thou Shout. So I hit him up going, I'm making a record. Do you want to make a beat? And he did.
He did, yeah.
Zane Lowe made a beat. Richard Russell made a beat. So it was very hodgepodge and stuck together, but it was key to have you or me, Warren, and Yilla kind of overseeing everything to make sure it all sounded like a record. The Struggle was made with Steve Mason. Yeah. It's the furthest from anything else on that record, but it is, we made sure it had the right sound and had the bareness, maybe.
Yeah, like we pulled
Steve
in
Mason,
we pulled in the synths and like.
There was another one where me and Steve had a day to make it work. I drove to his place, and it was a 14-hour drive.
Yeah.
Whoa! And the plan. So I got there at about 8 o'clock at night. And we went and got fish and chips, and we started to talk about ideas. And then we went in the studio and recorded essentially the bulk of it that night. Yeah. And then I went to bed. I woke up. He was in the studio already. Like, it was in his house. And then we recorded the rest of it. I was meant to be there for 3 or 4 days, and I was like, I'm probably just going to drive home now. Right. So I was probably there or definitely because of the drive home, I was there for less time than I drove. Yeah. And we made that track. And because, again, it's also that thing I've always been, and Warren will know this and Dan will know this, that I don't like to be in the studio and over the shoulder of the producer, because I know that I maybe haven't got the vision for where they're going. I'll hear where it is now, and I'll be like, I don't really like that. And I won't be able to see, this is a sketch. So I'd rather step away and leave the producer to produce and then hear it and give feedback and go back and forth, rather than be over someone's shoulder.
And that's a learning curve from when you would just write to whatever someone had sent you. Start to finish,
completely.
The reality is the development needs to be there. From a production side of you, because we've just finished a record, and the majority of the time...
That's why we're doing this podcast. It was just nicking...
That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly that, But we've just finished making a record, and the majority of it has been us stripping sound away. And deleting deleting channels and channels and channels of stuff we don't need after letting it sit and letting it breathe.
That's one of the things that Dan Lassac got amazing at. Like
Yeah,
one of
exactly.
the
Pulling
real
away.
keys of Dan's skill of production skill is his ability to strip things down, and it came from us working together because
I'd say, yeah.
he'd made solo stuff.
I loved
didn't
his
have,
solo stuff.
it was amazing, but he didn't have to have room for vocals.
Yeah.
So it was only when we did our first record and then he learnt from that, and more he'd go, right, well actually the vocals are another instrument,
Yeah.
so let's use that as an instrument and let's
Yeah.
let it have its
Exactly
room.
that.
And he's a master at that, considering how dense and beautiful he can make a track. Songs like You Will See Me, there's like barely anything there, and
Yeah,
it's
but
just
that's
it's
the
strong
key.
and it's
Well, that's it. When there's a strong idea, there's a strong top line. The
It's like the
production,
James Blake type vibe.
Yeah.
You know, there's just barely anything, but
it's
it's
minimal.
massively emotional.
Again, it's
and just like,
restrictions.
how-
It's restrictions as well, though,
Yeah.
because You Will See Me and Broken Promise are two tracks
Yes,
that are proper
yeah.
bare, but they're both tracks that came when we thought the album was finished, and then
Yeah,
we knocked
yeah,
that up,
it's
and we're
true,
like, oh, we've only got a couple of days.
Yeah.
There you go, it's
Yeah.
done. We didn't have months and months to tweak and play with it, and that's more on the producer's side. I'm normally all right,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
but a producer
find
will always want to
interestingly-
pick stuff apart, and that was what I said. We had the whole album done.
Yeah.
And I said I had an idea, and you sent that guitar kind of a
Yeah,
loop,
like
and
Broken
that was-
Promise, the final, we re-recorded all the parts at Yiller's, but like it was just a replication, really, because the way I recorded it was plugging it into the little sound card that I had, and just like direct input. So it was not like miking up
Yeah.
or nothing. It was just very basic. And we just got to use some nice amps, some nice guitars, and just layer it up nicely. And the production-wise, though, the synths and stuff didn't change because they was all in the box synths, just straight out. I think it were Native Instruments synths that I used, and like we just developed them and got them sounding a bit warmer. And it was a real basic,
was
sparse
such a
tune.
key on distraction pieces in general.
the live tour, man, it
so
was
many of the
bang.
ideas were far bigger than what they ended up being,
Yeah.
and that in a good way.
Yeah,
like
a good Yeah.
Feel It originally was going to be Natasha doing vocals
Yeah.
and Debbie, who was
Debbie, okay.
Yilla's partner at the time,
Yeah.
and there was
She
another
was
girl,
around
or one of the girls from Peggy Sue and the Pirates.
Yes.
Rosa was going to do a vocal on it, and the plan was to have all these female vocals, and then me doing the quiet male vocal that was kind of a counter argument. So it was a cover
Yeah.
that was a reworking, and then we got Natasha's vocal, and we were like,
Yeah.
we don't need anything else.
No, no,
That's it. It's so much better just to have that. If
Mate,
we'd done all the
yeah.
layers that we were planning on doing, it would have lost that. It might have worked, but it
Yeah.
would have been a completely different thing. Having just that vocal and then my kind of quiet one, it's one of the ones I hate hearing because
Yeah.
I hate my vocal on it now because I love her vocal so
Yeah,
much.
her
I'm like,
vocal's amazing,
fucking
isn't
I wish
Yeah.
I wasn't on
Yeah.
this track
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it just sounds so good. But it made it a million times more intimate
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I
personal
agree.
because it wasn't this track, it was this intimate back and forth. And it was another one that it meant it was far more stripped down than we originally planned.
Yeah.
And that was it. I remember I Let 'Em Come. I think
Yeah.
it's a good production story of that because I had the idea for the beat, but I'm not a producer. So I remember we sat in a pub
Yeah.
near
Me and you.
your old place opposite Vicky Park,
Yeah.
and I kind of sat there going, I want it to be like, because it's the football thing. Yo, 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 yo.
Yeah, it's a
I'd hear that down Millwall, and when it'd get like that echoey resonance where there's thousands of people all on the same tone and key,
Yeah.
it sounded amazing. I was like, that's what I want for Let 'Em Come. Let 'Em Come is Millwall's kind of motto.
I never thought it makes so much sense
Yeah,
now you say
it's-
that, but I've
it's-
heard the song a million times.
It's all Millwall
And I
based.
never would have put that
Yeah,
together.
and
Yeah, it
it's
is,
weird because both Sage and POS didn't know that,
Yeah.
and both of them mentioned lions in their vocals.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Which is bizarre
they
because that
do,
was pure
yeah.
chance. They didn't know that, but that's where
And they were both written separately too.
they both wrote
How
completely
weird is that? Yeah.
separately, but both mentioned lions.
Mad, isn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, but that was one where it was like, here's the idea,
Yeah,
and then
I
you
went
kind
away
of
and
had to
made
go
it, yeah.
away and find the right sound for it and all that. And yeah, it's a weird. Again, I'll put my hands up. At times I'm probably not the easiest person to work with on beats because I will have some specific ideas, but I won't be able to articulate them.
Yeah.
I'll know what doesn't sound right.
Yeah, exactly.
Dan Lassac will have to put up with me going, kind of needs to be a bit like Furrier. It'll be like, I don't even know what that is. So, yeah, and that's kind of, that's a prime example of that, of sitting in a pub and you having to put up with me going, here's how I want it to sound.
Yeah, literally. And I'm like, all right, what key? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's crack on with like more about production. We're gonna play a little bit of a track of yours.
Yep.
From No Commercial Breaks,
Yep.
which is At All.
Yep.
Which we actually a little story about this tune is that we developed it into the Distraction Pieces to a live set, didn't we? As like a big dirty punk tune.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very different to how the original record was. But yeah, if you can, we're gonna have a little listen, and then once we're finished, give us a little breakdown of how you made it specifically.
Yeah, completely.
What do you mean? Keep it real, can someone please explain? When reality's just like interpreted by your brain. And if mine and your perceptions ain't one and the same, which one of us is normal and which one is insane? The skin never forgets the deep vibration, yet the brain often forgets deep conversations. This annoys me due to the nature of humanity. Wanna remember the good, not just the bad things that happen to me. And yeah, I understand the mind's an intricate tapestry, but so is the skin, and that still recalls damage. See the scar above my eyebrows from when I was a kid, and my skin has kept the record of the damage I did 20-some years down the line from that very day. Documentation of carelessness and the price that you pay. Yeah, this overcomplex.
So, I mean, this is the best example of a track to pick, because this is the rawest form of a song that went through the most changes, because that song was also on mine and Dan's first record, but it was a track called Rapper's Battle.
Yeah.
I did the same vocal because Dan had a beat called Rapper's B on his solo record. I had a song called At All. I rapped it over the top and we called it a Rapper's Battle.
Brilliant.
And then we developed it on the live show to be this just balls to the wall punk song.
Yeah, it was great.
But yeah, originally I recorded it, or we did a version in the studio, as I mentioned, and it sounded too clean, so I re-recorded it at home. And what was the Bjork album that was all beatboxing and vocals?
It's not Verspatine, was it?
It is Verspatine.
Verspatine?
Yeah, it's Verspatine. So that had come out and blown me away. And I wanted to. That's kind of what I wanted to do with this track. So I just beatboxed and looped it and made noises and made like weird cat noises, all sorts of stuff. All on this mixing desk. I think I put a bass line on it as well. There's a bass line in there, isn't there? So I had a bass guitar. I used to play a bit of bass. So I think I plugged the bass directly into the mixing desk. So there was no amp or anything else. It's like just a direct DI of just this horrible cheap 70 quid bass guitar. And that's kind of, just how I worked it and built it, because it felt like it needed that. It needed that rawness. Oh no, that's it. Also, there was, again, it's proper going back to. I'm mixing up my tracks here, even though we've just heard it. It was Angles. I did a lot more of the beatbox and vocal on, but on At All I did a bit of it and just random bits of drums and stuff on the CD decks that I had. So I'd loop. I think it might have been a Peaches track, a Peaches snare, I think it was.
Yeah, it's the start of. I never realised that.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I
know the snare.
So I
on
nicked
the
a snare off a Peaches track, and just looped it. I played the bass guitar myself.
Yeah.
And it was all just. It had that. I had the original studio recorded vocal, but even that sounded too clean. So I just went for this. Recorded in my bedroom, and I'm glad I did now, because it feels like it's the one thing that's stuck around from them days, because I'm not one for keeping old demos and stuff.
No.
Mangan /76 has got everything, because he's one of the people I'd give my stuff to and go, have a listen to this and see what you think. And he's
so interestingly though, we need to talk about your collection of microphones.
Yes,
because as a geeky thing that is, you might not be a producer, but you've used them to create specific sounds. So I know that you used on At All. Isn't that little weird one that you had?
Yeah, I had a little, again,
the little
that's
handheld one.
That's the tough side, is I'm a nerd for mics, but all based on how they look.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So I'd buy these...
I'd forgotten that.
I'd buy these vintage mics off eBay that looked amazing. And then, I mean, even more so on distraction pieces, that I'd then take them into Yilla and be like, I want to use this. And he'd be like, this sound like, and in general we'd use them for backing vocals and stuff like that, but it gave it a really good sound because it was these mics that have been around for 50 years or something and are barely holding together still.
The magnet
but
in there's a
we're
bit fucked.
doing the vocal and it's making it, it's getting it there. So yeah, on that all I would have done it on one of the old mics, but then probably done a cleaner just on an SM58 over the top because that was the industry standard as far as I knew. And take it from there.
One of the things you've been quite prolific at is the image side in terms of video. And I didn't you've won awards, right, for some videos, or at least nominated
some awards. Yeah.
I know that it's something that people can struggle with. In terms of, so if you're an artist, you create an album, and then you get to the next point. You've already talked about, you had a strong sort of different image. This is your first kind of visual.
Yeah.
Does that just come easy to you? And do you sort of painstakingly think about how you can be different, how you can do what videos can you do that haven't been done before?
Well, that's it. It's a weird one, and it's why I've found myself now in TV and film and stuff like that. I'm a nerd for that kind of thing. So that was I'd always have tons of ideas. The reason on all the solo videos, I co-directed them, and all the ones after my solo record, I co-directed. But the reason that kind of came about was all the videos on the first album. We worked with a guy called Nick Thru, who was absolutely amazing, and he kind of sat me down at one point and said, "Look, you need to just do these yourself," because he's like, "I'm barely getting to direct them. Like, you're coming to me with such a specific idea."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Here's what I think it should be, and this, and this, and this," and then he's going and making it happen and making it amazing because he's an amazing director. But yeah, he was the one that kind of sat me down and said, "Just do them yourself because you've got such a specific vision that it's really hard." In a way, it's hard to work with you because you know what you want. It's like, well, do it yourself then.
Yeah.
Why are you bringing in an amazing thinker and director to go, "Here's what I want"?
Yeah. Have you've directed for other people though as well, right?
I've on the label, I've directed the War and Peace ones, the Giacomo Brown ones, and things like that.
And, has offers come in to do more stuff for bands and stuff like that? Or is it not an area?
But it wasn't an area I was particularly gagging to get into. Tom Coles, who was the cameraman on all of them and very much the co-director and co-creator, Aaron as well. Aaron Shrimpton directed a load of them but didn't work on all of them. But Tom was the one that me and him would work on all of them. It made more sense to have a cameraman that you go to with an idea rather than a director, and then you collaborate on it and co-direct it. And that's how they kind of all works. So the first one that me and Tom worked on was Introduction, which has got the most views.
Shaving
so that's the one I spent 100 quid on.
Right.
For 70 quid, I rented a storage container just off Tarpot's roundabout. I spent 30 quid on toys to set fire to, and a little bit of lighter fluid. And then we went in this container and made this video, and it's had something like 4 or 5 million views now. It's it's that and Thou Shalt are the two I'm most known for. In America, 100% Introduction is the one that got more known and more out there. And that was it. It was a restriction. And my thought there, the thought process there was, we built this fan base with Dan Lassac, but this is a solo record. How can I get every one of mine and Dan's fans to give it a listen, and not necessarily to like it, because I was aware it was harder, it was punkier, it was rawer, and I just went, right, I've got my big beard is something I'm known for. I'll cut it off in the video. That'll make sure everyone tunes in and looks at it. So that was the simple start of the idea, and then I wanted to start setting things on fire, which was a mad idea.
It's always fun to watch.
And that was it. I realised it had to be a one take, because if I'm going to be shaving my head and stuff, that exactly ups the peril if we've only got one try at it. So we did that, and again it was that not thinking about what happens if it goes wrong. So, right, we're not thinking about that. And we filmed it on August 1st and uploaded it on August 3rd, which was on my birthday.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was I didn't want to be out and about and have people, if I had a gig or whatever else, I wanted it to be a reveal that I cut my beard off, I shaved my head, all live. And but I mean, because of the one-shot nature of it, it made it more dangerous.
Yeah.
Because in it, I set fire to a hobby horse.
Yeah.
And this is inside a closed metal container.
Oh my god.
But because we
plastic and just like, I mean, fuck.
because we knew it had to work, we doused it in petrol because we were like,
Yeah.
we can't have it that it's the big end to the video and I'm flicking a lighter and it doesn't go, and it starts to not go.
Yeah.
But then when it goes up, it fucking goes up. So
yeah.
that's flaming and it's going everywhere. And I'm setting fire to stuff. Flames are literally dripping onto the floor.
Yeah.
Because we put so much petrol on it, essentially. And then we cut, and my mate Ollie was outside with a fire extinguisher, and we pile out, and the guy who owns the site that had the container on there just walked past, and he just went, I don't even want to know, Pip. And it was golden, but it was that thing again of, it's kind of the story
Brilliant,
of all
isn't
of it, of just do it and then figure it out later. So
Yeah.
we were like, ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
Yeah.
And that was the idea there. I'd
Yeah.
paid him 70 quid for this container. I'd said, we're doing a video. I hadn't said we're setting stuff on fire because he might have said, no, you can't do that. That's really dangerous. It's like, ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And that's, that kind of plays into all of the career. Just go and do it and figure it out later.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah. So it's that was an interesting one, and that video I said from shooting to having 1 million views was a couple of days because we shot it on the 1st. It went up on the 3rd. That night it became Zane Lowe's biggest record in the world on Radio 1. So by the end of the week, it had like 1 million views. And it's like, man, we started this week without a video.
Yeah. And if you had an unlimited budget, would you still try and work within the constraints of sort of allocating? Because it sounds like you become.
Depends if the taxman's listening or not.
I'm assuming he's not going to be tuning into this
got an
podcast.
unlimited
Dunno,
budget
mate.
and I get to keep it, then we're making a £100 video, my friend. And it's costing us 1 million. I don't know. Yeah, I think those restrictions are cool. Later down the line, I purposely put those restrictions upon myself, and it's something I've not really talked about. But I've got 2 songs that I've never really done live, and I've never released because I don't own them. But No Nimbus and No Whimpers. And the way the first one came about, No Nimbus, was I was having a rough time. I'd had a breakup, and I heard a Grimes song in my car, and I wrote to it as I was driving. A day later, I hit up Warren and said, I've got this vocal, can you kind of loop bits? No, there wasn't even much looping on it, was it? I just rapped over the track. Essentially, you added a bit. The Grimes one, I just,
no vocals on it.
Yeah. So I just rapped over it,
I just
and you produced it and made the vocals sound alright. And then I planned the video. It was a one-shot thing again. I went and shot that. So from hearing that track to the video being up online was a week.
Wow.
And it went down really well. It was a point where I had low self-worth, and it was a really good way to go, I'm fucking all right, you know?
Yeah.
Because this is a
needed
week.
as well.
In a week,
Yeah.
I've turned this round,
Yeah.
it's up, and people like it, and it's good.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
that in a week, mate.
Yeah.
It wasn't like months and months. It
Yeah.
was
No,
like,
a week.
here we go, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And then I did another one, and I wasn't in a particularly bad place for this one. I just heard this track and thought, cool.
Yeah.
And that was No Whimpers. But I set the same restriction. I hit Warren up and said, you about much this week?
yeah.
Because this one needed a few little tweaks and a few little
That
loops,
was
I
the
think.
loop. It was
Tove low,
it's
get
Tove
high.
low, yeah, get high, yeah. And I did have to loop that and fuck around with that.
Yeah, and I
Which
added
is
some
loads of
kind of some weird noises and some
Yeah.
breathing and stuff like that because I
It's a
wanted
good tune,
to
that,
add some bits. And again, that was another one. And I hit up my mate Gemma, who's a choreographer,
She was around here.
and she hit some people up who were at a dance school, and we wrote a dance sequence. And again, it was Tom.
Yeah, it's dope.
And within a week, again, heard this track, wrote this track, recorded it, shot a video, and had it up online all within a week again. And again, it was another one that was really popular. And I don't know, it's a good practice. It's a good thing to
Just do.
to test yourself and remind
it's a big
yourself
slap
of.
on the back, especially if you've gone through a breakup. You can't wallow in pity if you're creating and making. It's just the two can't coexist. So
No, exactly.
it's just an escape.
And without
immediate
going
escape.
into any details, but it'd been a relationship with someone who was far more successful and famous than me and stuff like that. So I think it made me question the value of me, and it was really good to go, oh, I'm all right. I'm Scroobius Pip still. you know, and I may not be this world renowned star, but I do what I do, and I do it all right. So yeah. I came up with a motto, a mantra a while ago that I text Polar Bear about immediately, because he's a mate and a spoken word artist,
he's brilliant.
and it's just,
He's brilliant.
I ain't shit, but I ain't shit.
Yeah.
And it sounds really stupid and simple, but it's key for the humbleness and the self-worth, because it's like, in the grand scheme of things, I ain't shit. It's not. There's nothing important. I honestly believe that I'm not making some big difference. I don't believe in that. Oh, but I've left a legacy now, so when I leave this world, my art will fuck off. It's some songs. But equally, I ain't shit. I do all right. I'm decent at what I do. So yeah, it was kind of a good mantra and a good thing to keep you grounded and proud at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, man.
That's the way.
So, hypothetical question then.
Yes.
Nowadays,
Yes.
let's say you've got £1,000 budget and you don't have any equipment. What's the 3 most important things that you need to buy and do in order to get going?
Right, that's good. So I guess, going from my point of view, because I started off in spoken word, I would say now you pretty much don't need to buy anything, because everything you need you've got. You've got a smartphone, because that's the sad world that we live in. There's free apps that you can record vocals on and videos on.
That's a good point,
so from a spoken word point of view, all you need is the idea and the fucking work ethic to go and hustle it, to do a good video for it. And an iPhone video, I make it work. So yeah, I'd say on the bare...
I think an iPhone
at
sounds
the start,
like because you've got a camera, microphone. You can even get like
there's some
GarageBand and stuff and things.
GarageBand's
like that.
on
You can record it.
On Dan Lasac's podcast, he talks about a few different apps that he uses for making beats, and he'll use them as synths, because there's these synth apps, and he'll build on there and then bring that into Ableton or whatever else. He's done other stuff that he'll just build it on there, and that'll be the finished thing. So there's so much there that you can just do.
It really is.
For free. So my thought is ignoring the restrictions of it all and just going, right, well, let's have a look about. I've always said to you, Warren, it's something I learnt off Dan as well, is look at what you've got and get good at it. I think it can be distracting to go, oh, is Ableton the new thing, or is it Pro Tools? I'll get Pro Tools now. Oh, there's a new GarageBand, I'll get that. And you never get good at any one thing, because all these programs are so huge. There's too much to do. So I've learned that from a video editing point of view. A lot of the videos I've edited are myself, and I just
physically in software doing it yourself.
in Final Cut.
In Final Cut.
And that I had no knowledge of that, but I had it, so I learnt it, and I've had no classes, so there's probably tons of stuff in there that I take an hour to do that you could do in a minute, because there's a shortcut, but I've learnt what I had and made it work. And that's how, like, all the videos where I've turned them over in a week, it's because I've been able to go, right, tonight I'm not sleeping, I'm sitting on Final Cut, kind of going and tweaking and doing things. So it's tough. I mean, outside of that, on an actual practical level, I guess a decent microphone,
one that looks good.
Or maybe 2 microphones there, one that looks good and one that actually has a good function, because being able to record good and clean is really handy. The kit I bought for my podcast, I've had the same kit for 5 years now, and it's because I bought good microphones and a good hardware. Again, I don't use any software on the podcast.
Right.
Buddy does when he's tweaking it, but on the actual record, it's because of my fear of computers.
Oh, really?
So particularly in the early days of me and Dan, we were blowing up quicker than we were learning, if you know what I mean. So we were doing these gigs with 400 people in a sweaty room, and Dan's just got his laptop. Hot rooms or sweaty rooms or wet rooms aren't good for laptops. So we had gigs where it's just crashed and all sorts of stuff. And it's stuff that we had to prepare for on the Distraction Pieces tour.
So much shit.
Where we'd have stands so you can get stuff underneath. And a lot of that was because I'd learned from me and Dan. And so, for example, on the podcast front, I didn't want to have to worry about that. I'm not enough of a tech guy to want to be able to be keeping an eye on a laptop. Has this crashed? Is this still moving?
So
has it gone to sleep?
What do you record into?
I've got a mixing desk. I've got a little desk that's got a memory card in it.
And that's it.
And that's it. It's got channels, so I can then take them out as stems, which again, it means I don't have to worry about the levels because we've got 2 mics and 2 feeds, so it's fine. And again, I have to keep a bit of an eye that it's registering. Like I can visually see the sound is moving. And then, that's it. But again, it's because of a fear of if something goes wrong with the software, I won't know how to fix it. And I don't like having to rely on anyone else. Again, it's the DIY thing. It's all the DIY thing. I could have all my podcasts and have a producer there and someone else looking after it, but it's like I want it to be intimate. I want it to be me and this other person, and that's it. So
yeah. Oh, cool, man. Makes a lot of
I've
sense.
kind of not answered the kind of £1,000 budget. It's
No,
like,
well, no,
give
actually,
me the
what you said-
£1,000 and I'll advise you. I'll G you up.
It sounds like you've pocketed the grand.
Yeah.
You've gone and got an iPhone.
And just said, you're great.
or whatever. Yeah.
You do it yourself.
You just crack on some.
Or I'd say in an even more key bit, it completely depends who you are. The key to my producing of music comes from going from the point where I'm doing spoken word because I don't know any producers. You can tell what the key is. I met some producers. So I met Dan Lasac.
Yeah.
I met Warren. I got working with these people. So that can be a key as well. If it's something that, right, to get good at this, it'll take me 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe I can, again, find a shortcut.
Yeah.
That means I don't spend 10 years getting good. I go to someone who knows how to do it, and we work together. Don't have that overwhelming pride or that need to hold everything. My publisher, after Distraction Pieces, pretty much didn't talk to me because while it won't seem of much, I gave really unusually fair splits on everything because I don't give a fuck. It was a collaboration, and in general, in music, you kind of the artist has got at least there's an artist side and then there's a production side, but so the lyrics, the writer of the lyrics will get 50%, but then he'll get a percentage of the other side because he's also part of the song and
melody.
all this.
Yeah.
On 90% of them, I take my half or less because there was a few tracks that was so key that Yellow and Warren and Danny Lorna and whomever else. So he hated me because the paperwork of the royalties every year was like, so we've got like 20 people that we have to pay rather than just here's your money. And again, a lot of places will do just a straight buyout from the off. So rather than you get a percentage, here's your fee.
Yeah.
I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll just give you what you want on the percentages or what seems fair.
Yeah.
I can't say what you want because if there's 4 people working on it, then we're getting over 100%.
Yeah.
If everyone wants 50%,
Yeah, exactly.
that doesn't work. So
That's not our maths.
and things like that. It was that it's realizing that if you overthink too much of that stuff, the record will never exist.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have a record that exists than 100% ownership of a record that doesn't exist. So that was kind of a key there is meet other people and be all right.
Surround yourself by people.
And that was it. Again, it's there's a lot of talk as well in the industry these days of putting value on your work, and I agree with that. But equally, I've done tons of work for free because there wasn't a budget and because I wanted to be involved. And similarly, most of the stuff that me and Warren have worked on, me and Yilla have worked on, initially, you're doing it for the love because there's no money in it. But all of the people I hope I've worked with know that when money does come, they've all been paid. They've all got their cuts. They've all got the back end of it because that's how I'd work it. If you're going to spend, again, if you're going to wait a year to raise the funds, the record might not ever happen.
I think you still own your score from 2012, actually.
yeah, exactly. So, it's all noted. But yeah, I think that's key as well. I think it's such a weird and delicate subject because I completely agree that people shouldn't be exploited.
Yeah.
Everyone should have their worth, but equally, it depends. If you're meeting people and you want to work together, me and when I worked with DJ Yoda and we were both established, we didn't discuss money. We made a track, and then later I was like, "All right, am I getting a percentage?" Or and I can't remember. I honestly don't know what we figured out for our track that's on his album. I can't remember if I got paid or not, but it doesn't matter because it was something that we were excited to do. I think people forget that when you and your mates buy your first instruments and you set up in your dad's garage, you don't discuss percentages.
Yeah, no.
You discuss the excitement to make this and record, and that excitement hopefully has stuck with me for all the things I've worked on. It's always like, let's get this done.
Yeah.
And then again, sadly, money has to come into it at some point because that's the world we live in and it's essential. But it's never the first thought, or hopefully the second, third, or fourth.
Yeah, man.
That's the way it should be.
So what's next? We haven't even touched on the films, the TV.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, where are you going next? What direction are you going in? I saw some clothing that was Make Pip Rap Again. I've seen some caps or something.
I did a Make Pip Rap Again.
Oh, was it you?
Cap? Yeah, I did that just purely to.
I thought it would be someone else who did
exploit Trump. But yeah, it's an interesting one because it's really weird that I've now gone from working in a way where I'll have an idea and it'll be released in a week to working in an industry where people don't know how hard you're working. Yeah. And maybe I will never know. I've got a TV script I worked on for ages that's in development with Warp that no one knows about. I've got a film script that's on the verge of getting funding that no one knows about. And I kind of love it because it takes away that need for instant gratification. Right. You're working for the art and for the work, and it's heartbreaking when you have to acknowledge that half these projects are never going to see the light of day. But those early records right now, I would rather never see the light of day because I think they're rubbish. I can't listen to them because they sound so raw. I sound so... Yeah. So it's that kind of outlook on this is going, well, that's fine. If these scripts never see the light of day, I'll probably get a lot better by the time the scripts that do see the light of day see the light of day. So I'm auditioning a lot. Again, I'm getting to be up for some stuff that's insane, but no one knows about it. Yeah, me and someone in a room know that I was up for this mad thing that ends up being... I had one that ended up... The role went to fucking Aquaman.
Really?
The lad that's Aquaman. And I'm like, mate, I was in the running for that. How ridiculous and stupid is that? And so stuff like that is just cool to me.
Was it Aquaman?
No, it wasn't Aquaman. But it's, I kind of... That's currently where my excitement is. On the music front, I've written a load of lyrics, but I've not got anything that I'm feeling needs to see the light of day immediately. Yeah. I want to, if I do, the next thing I do, similarly, I want it to be different from everything I've done before. Me and Dan's still making amazing beats. I could hit him up and we could make a record. I've not got much of a desire to do that. Me and Warren have worked on loads of stuff, but
there's still stuff that's unheard.
There's stuff that's unheard, but still, it's not. It's kind of that thing. Right, we've done that. So at the moment, I'm not itching to do more stuff that I've done before. Yeah. So the only way new music will come, I think, is if some random thing happens that I'm like, all right, and then it might come like I'll do an album in a week, and it'll be out the next week because there are still bits I've written, but most of my excitement to get up and sit at a computer is script ideas and working in that world and in the world of having 6 episodes of a TV show to tell a story rather than 3 minutes of a song. Because again, at least 50% of my lyrics, it's storytelling. So it's mad exciting to go, all right, I've not got 3 minutes, I've got 6 episodes. This is crazy. Or I've got 90 minutes or 2 hours. So that's where the excitement is at the moment. And acting, again, just I'm reading a lot, I'm studying a lot, because I've been in a weird position on the acting front, because the first gigs I got, the feedback I got was the reason I got them was because I've not come from drama school. I've not got that overtrained, we're all delivering things in the same way.
It's punk ethic, man.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Pick it up and do it.
But that can make you lazy as well. That can make you go, all right, I'm just a natural.
Rock up and
just fucking do it. there's no industry like that. In rapping, I got better from studying, from learning flows, from. So I'm doing a similar thing there where I'm reading a lot of acting books. I'm about to join a little class that I've had recommended to me, but I've been really picky on that because, again, we all live out in the sticks. With the greatest respect, I'm not confident that if I rock up to an acting class 5 minutes up the road from me, that they're going to be the highest of quality and teach me the best things. They might not. They also might be. That's not any snobbery there, but it's that thing of wanting to protect any natural rawness that's there, but also add to it and know that I'm putting the graft in and not just being,
which is fair.
Well, I'll just turn up and do it, you know what I mean? They want Scroobius Pip, they'll fucking get Scroobius Pip. That's not what I want to do. So but I said it's mad because all of that stuff, particularly as the last music I was doing was literally write, record, here it is, instant gratification. It's mad to go to stuff that's like, right, no one is patting me on the back for this. You have to be incredibly self-motivated because it's like, right, I'm writing scripts that might never see the light of day, but they're making a good impression. Like they're getting my name out there and all that kind of thing. And I'm learning, so it's weird.
Awesome, man.
All right. I think a lot of people think I've died.
Yeah. Mate, I ain't seen you in fucking time.
Friends, family, exactly.
I'm surprised you're here.
It's completely true. But it's a mad one in that respect. But
Is there a taboo too?
It got signed off. It's been commissioned. I had Stephen Knight on the podcast. And again, it's another thing. I learnt a bit more. I talk to Hardy all the time. But again, you don't talk about... I'm not going to be hitting him. If we wouldn't be mates if every other message I'm going, any word on taboo?
Yes.
What's going on? That wouldn't be a good friendship. But I had Stephen Knight on and he revealed, which is something I kind of knew, but I didn't know if it was public knowledge or not, but now Stephen said it is. Tom, as a lot of people know, had a new kid recently, and because of that, he doesn't want to do any acting work that's out of the country.
Right.
Or in general, he's not doing much at all, but he wants to do only things that are convenient for him to be at home and be a dad.
Fair enough.
And Taboo 2 a lot of it is going to be in America, so
is it?
It's just got pushed back and back.
Yeah, you got
we
on the
left
boats.
on the boat. Yeah.
You did,
So I'm signed off for it. I'm on board. Stephen Knight has confirmed I'm in the next series. It was great. About a few minutes in, I mentioned Taboo, and he twigged because I hadn't met him before. Yeah, so we're having this chat, and then he's like, "Yes, I know you're in it, aren't you?" So there is going to be more Taboo, as far as I know. Again, it's a long old gap, but I'm a big believer in quality comes when it's not rushed.
Yeah.
If you want, I'm not shitting on EastEnders, but EastEnders is out a few times a week. I don't think it's as good as Taboo.
No, it's worth waiting
because it's about because they have to make it a few times a week. So filming wise, everything wise, you've not got as much time. So I'd rather people like Stephen Knight, who's one of the best writers out there, I'd rather he spends a few years on it and then we come back with this amazing series. So
it's good that people are hanging on as well.
Yeah,
it was fantastic, wasn't it, man? You
and again, it's one of them that we live in an age where everything's going to be available forever. So if we come back in a year's time, there's going to be people who are like, "Oh, I didn't see that." Well, you can watch it now.
Yeah,
it's not like when it was just on the BBC and it's like, "Oh, that was 2 years ago." I can't remember what happened. It's like you can rewatch it on iPlayer. Yeah. All right, cool. So that's interesting. And film, TV, all sorts of goodness. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I think pretty much covered everything, didn't we? I mean, we could sit here and talk all day. I'd love to know more about what you get up to behind the scenes, but
actually, there's one thing to just finish it with.
Yes.
Advice for someone that's doing what you did, essentially. Like, I mean, from like music production, like you know. What do they do now? If they want to do something now, what's your just one clean bit of advice?
I mean, the clean bit of advice isn't that clean. Not like it's dirty, but just
Porn.
Yeah, porn. Fuck this music game is shit.
Do porn.
My DMs are open. No, they're not. They're not. No, it's the thing that the reason that me and Dan had success was that we didn't try and just do one thing.
Yeah.
So we had Thou Shalt come out, and it got 1 million views and was up for an MTV award in Japan, and it got us on the Carson Daly show in America. But we didn't go, we've had our internet success. We gigged. From the start of our career till the end, we did, except for the gap where I was doing solo stuff, but still independently we did. I have done at least 100, until I stopped gigging, I did at least 100 gigs a year, every year. And some years it was over 200. So me and Dan were adamant that, we've had this MySpace hit, but now we need to build that live following, because someone else could be the hot new thing next week. So I think that's key, kind of work on your socials, but work on live as well. And again, if you're smashing it locally live, you've not made it yet. You need to build fans outside of your friendship fan base, all that kind of thing. So it's just attacking from every angle, I guess, which isn't an easy or helpful answer, because we want that quick fix. Right. But it's like you've got to be hitting up the radio stations. I was hitting up XFM and Radio 1 and all that. Exactly. You've got to be doing your socials, hitting up podcasts, playing live as much as you can, and
playing your trade, and
a friend,
and learning and getting better. It's better to be shit when no one's there watching.
Yeah, that's true.
It's rubbish. It's why there's a lot of rubbish live acts now, because someone blows up online and then they're playing Brixton Academy and they're shit live.
Can't play.
It's another reason I've no rush to come back to playing live, because I've not gigged in 5 years, and in the 10 years before that, I got really good. If I did a gig now, there'd be a lot of people there, and I might not be very good.
Really?
But when I was not very good, there was no one there. It was open mics, and normally the people there are only there to get up and do their bit anyway. So I had that years of not being very good in front of with no one watching.
Oh, man.
So
it's a very good bit of advice.
It's weird.
Get your shit stuff out of the way when no one's watching.
Yeah.
And you'll naturally get better anyway.
And that's why them gigs are important, because I think there is a difference between a live gig and a practice room, because a practice room is far more in your control. So you get to a gig and there's 10 people there, and you might think, there's no one there, 2 people there, only the other band's there. You might think, let's sack this one off. Nah, do it. It's good for you. It's good for you. It's why all those gigs on street corners were good for me. I wouldn't do them now. Yeah. But they were good for me. I learnt from them, and I got better because of it. So I think it's all key. A gig's a free practice, and that's a good thing. Yeah,
always.
Awesome.
Thank you very
again,
much,
man.
Thank you. I've been holding off eating any popcorn for ages.
Loads of it.
I went to reach about 5 times to stop myself, to the extent that Warren moved them nearer to me because he thought I just couldn't reach. I'm like, no. I'm just remembering as I reached. I'm like, no, we're doing an interview. I won't. But I
did that thing where you get there's like a cap that goes on the little nut bit, and sometimes it like suckers onto your tongue. It's right at the back, and you were talking about
trying to get this sorted.
Yeah, held it well though.
Podcast and snap.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See, I told you he was a nice bloke. What a lovely, lovely man. Don't forget to head over to our social media platforms. Any media platform at Thru The DAW, THRU the DAW. Give us some likes, comments, suggestions, whatever you like, really. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on whichever platform it is that you're listening to it on, so that we can provide you with updates of new episodes that we're going to be releasing over the next few weeks and months. There is genuinely some fantastic stuff coming on board, so you're going to want to receive those updates. I know that everybody says that, and I have to say that, but you're just going to have to believe me. Cool. Thank you so much for listening and taking the time out, and we'll get you on the next one.